Things are looking extremely bright for the leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre. It looks like he's really starting to get himself nestled into Alberta with his comeback video, which is phenomenal. But it's still going to be a bit of an uphill battle with this by-election. You remember how there was 91 ballots or 91 names on the ballot in Carleton during the federal election? Well, now there's over 200. Those same protesters, that same protest group has now committed, and quite literally, there are over 200 names already on the ballot as they prepare the by-election. So we're going to have to wait and see how that plays. But again, it's an Alberta conservative stronghold, and I just don't see Pierre losing it. But if for some reason, if it somehow is kind of close or Pierre does lose, I'm going to have to start making videos about that because that seems absolutely ridiculous. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. Now, on the flip side of the coin, Mark Carney, not so bright of a future ahead of him. He's going to meet Trump in the White House today, and he didn't even say thank you. I mean, that's a little joke about the Zelensky thing. I can only hope he gets Zelensky where Trump and JD Vance say, this is how you dress. You didn't even say thank you. So fingers crossed that those elbows up come back and bite Carney in the butt. We got a lot to take a look at in this video, and I hope you stick around for the full thing. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I'd like to encourage you guys to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel. Now, just because our prime minister will be not able to protect himself at the meeting with the president doesn't mean that you can't protect yourself online, which is a perfect segue into today's sponsor. This video is brought to you by today's sponsor, Private Internet Access. If you're fed up with government censorship and the government tracking and then selling your data, well, boy, oh boy, do I have a fix for you. Private Internet Access, my go-to VPN, is the best way to cloak yourself so that you can browse the internet anonymously. Also unlocks a whole bunch of censored news here in Canada, which is the Liberals' quota. In addition to that, when you have Hulu, Netflix, Disney Plus, it allows you to access content that is restricted by this country. So you can use American Netflix, French Netflix, Italian Netflix, whatever it is that you want. There are so many benefits to Private Internet Access, but my favorite is the fact that it works on so many different devices: mobile phones, iPads, smart TVs. If you use my link down below in the description or the pinned comment below, you'll get 83% off Private Internet Access today. Alternatively, you could go to piavpn.com/sunshine to get the exact same discount. Thank you, Private Internet Access, for sponsoring today's video. Getting back to the video, it's again not looking good for Mark Carney. Mark Carney famously did the elbows up chicken dance commercial with Mike Myers, and Mike Myers is not in a very good position right now. Turns out that the Diddy Trial has already begun, and one of the first people mentioned on that Diddy Trial is Mike Myers. That is not something at all. And apparently famous actor Michael B. Jordan, but we're gonna have to wait and see how the rest of the list starts to unravel itself, because that's kind of weird. That's kind of weird that Mark Carney is affiliated with Myers, who was affiliated with Baby Oil Diddy. Very bizarre. But nonetheless, here, let's get to taking a look at Pierre Poilievre's comeback video with his wife walking through the prairies. Here we go.
Well, it's been about a week since the election, and it didn't go how we wanted. But when you get knocked down, you get up and get going. And we've got a lot to be thankful for. I'm thankful for you, the countless people who packed out our rally halls, our 2.3 million extra votes, the 25 extra seats, the breakthroughs in Ontario and BC, the expanded coalition of young people, union workers, entrepreneurs, soldiers, and countless others who had never voted before and are now supporting our conservative cause. Now, it wasn't enough. We didn't get over the finish line, which means that I need to learn and grow, and our team needs to expand. That will be my mission. And we've got a path. With a path to get elected back into Parliament as soon as possible, we'll be holding the government to account, proposing better ideas to solve the problems that you're facing every day. And our mission hasn't changed. I still want to put you back in charge of your life, give everyone who works hard a fair shot at an affordable home, living on a safe street, protected by police and soldiers and sound laws, so that everybody's safe and our flag flies high over the freest country on earth. Now, it won't be easy, but easy street leads to a dead end, and the hardest paths lead to the best destination. Our destination is a country where the possibilities are as big and blue as this prairie sky. Let's make it happen.
Oh, there you go. The future is looking bright for the Conservative Party, and specifically the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre. And I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments about that speech. Was that good enough for you? Was that not adequate? Let me know your reasoning down below. For me personally, I think it's awesome to see Pierre back in the spotlight, back in the mix, especially with his wife. And I think you're going to start to see a bit more of a rebrand in the coming weeks. It'll probably be premature, but in the coming months and in the next couple of years until we head into the next election. There is some work to do. There's a massive amount of grassroots support, and just because we lost a fight doesn't mean that we lost the war. So more on that stuff later, but hey, it's good to see Pierre back at it again. Moving forward here, in terms of the uphill battle, this is what the 200 name ballot for Pierre Poilievre's by-election looks like. We thought 91 was long. This is 200. And you can see here in the comments, people are saying, why isn't this illegal? And I actually did bring that up, if you remember, as they were heading into the federal election. I thought that Elections Canada would probably get involved to prevent something like this from happening, because if this is a small group, talking like a few hundred people are able to coordinate something like this at probably a very low budget, how is this going to look if they do this on every single ballot of every single election in this country at all levels? I think that this just can't be taken seriously in the long run. Now, that might be unpopular. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you agree, but it's just annoying. I think I'm just annoyed with it by this point, but whatever. I respect the hustle to the troll. But again, at some point, I think Elections Canada is going to have to start cracking down. And speaking of cracking down, for those that missed it yesterday, I'm only going to play but a 2-minute clip of Danielle Smith's speech addressing the country and Albertans about the referendum. So let's take a look at that, shall we?
Alberta will be taking steps to better protect ourselves from Ottawa. As a start, I will soon appoint a special negotiating team to represent our province in negotiations with the federal government on the following reforms requested by our province. We hope this will result in a binding agreement that Albertans can have confidence in. Call it an Alberta Accord, if you will. First, Alberta requires guaranteed corridor and port access to tidewater off the Pacific, Arctic, and Atlantic coast for the international export of Alberta oil, gas, critical minerals, and other resources in amounts supported by the free market rather than by the dictates and whims of Ottawa. Every province in the country, other than Alberta and Saskatchewan, have coastal port access, and no province needs it more given the size and value of our resources. This will benefit all Canadians to the tune of trillions of dollars of economic activity, including billions for First Nations partners. Second, the federal government must end all federal interference in the development of provincial resources by repealing the No New Pipelines Law, C-69, the oil tanker ban, the net zero electricity regulations, the oil and gas emissions cap, the net zero vehicle mandate, and any federal law or regulation that purports to regulate industrial carbon emissions, plastics, or the commercial free speech of energy companies. These laws are destroying investment confidence and costing Canada and Alberta hundreds of billions in investments each year. They need to go. Third, the federal government must refrain from imposing export taxes or restrictions on the export of Alberta resources without the consent of the government of Alberta. Frankly, all provinces should be given that same respect for their resources.
All right, so there is obviously more to it. It was about an 18-minute direct address to the country and to Albertans. If you want to watch the full thing, feel free to go look at my previous video yesterday. I do want to ask you guys, what do you think about this? Do you think, first of all, that these demands are reasonable? And do you think, secondly, that any of these demands will actually be met? if I'm being fully transparent, I don't know if Carney is going to be able to meet any of these demands. Unrestricted access for Alberta oil and gas, the east and west coast. I'm not saying that that's an outrageous demand. I just don't see the Liberal government saying, okay, yes, you basically make all the money for this country. We're going to treat you, better than we do other provinces. That's kind of how it should be, but I don't think they're going to do that. And I think that this is only going to fuel the citizen separatist movement for the referendum. Now, at different parts of Danielle Smith's speech, she did come out and say that she doesn't support at this time this being on the ballot at the end of the year during the election. Now, that can be taken two ways. You could take it, she doesn't support the separatist movement or referendum, or you could take it a separate way, because she did confirm that the separate way, that's a second way, is true, that if the citizens want it there, then they can put it there. But there's a whole lot of subtle wording that she uses, such as, I don't support it at this time. And if the citizens want it, then it's the green light and they can do whatever they want. I can't stop private citizens from wanting to put that on the ballot. So again, it feels like there's still quite a bit of momentum for Alberta separating. And especially if Mark Carney comes back and knocks down or tries to renegotiate any of these proposals that Danielle Smith put forward, such as unrestricted access to the east and the west ports, I feel like it's only going to add more fuel to the fire. Now, whether that was strategically said by Danielle Smith or not, we're just going to have to wait and see how this plays out. But I'd like to pass the question off to you as we move away from Danielle Smith. Do you support Alberta separating? If you do or don't, let me know your reasoning down below. Next up here, we've got the Prime Minister meeting with Donald Trump today. At some point, they're going to be meeting. And Trump quite literally says, not sure what Carney wants to talk about, but I guess we're going to meet him. But instead of reading a quote, let's see what he had to say directly.
What's your expectation for your meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister tomorrow?
I don't know. He's coming to see me. I'm not sure what he wants to see me about, but I guess he wants to make a deal. Everybody does. They all want to make a deal because we have something that they all want. We have something that they all want. China wants to make a deal very badly. You see what's happening to China. China's being decimated, and I don't want that to happen. But they have to make a fair deal. We were losing hundreds of billions of dollars a year. We were losing think of it, on our trade policies with Biden. We're losing $5 billion a day. I think Josh, as a great businessman, would not let that happen too long, right? How many groups could lose $5 billion a day? If you lose $5 billion one day, that's the end of that company, right? You're fired. He says, you're fired. Get out of here. So we essentially did that, and we have it down to a very low number. We're doing really well, really well.
Yeah, I predict that you're going to see a new meme that's birthed from this Trump and Mark Carney meeting. I just don't see how Mark Carney comes out of this winning at all whatsoever, but we're going to have to wait a few hours later in the day to see how that does turn out. Now, speaking of Carney, it turns out that Mark Carney wants to censor social media platforms. So for those who thought he might be different than Trudeau, he's not at all.
American online platforms have become seas of racism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and hate in all its forms. And they're being used by criminals to harm our children. My government will act. And today we're announcing our plan to fight crime, to protect Canadians, and to build communities that are safe, secure, and strong. A plan to make Canada secure, to make Canada strong. America.
Okay, so there you go. It turns out like he wants to start banning social media platforms. Where have we seen this before? You know, it's really starting to feel like he quite literally is Justin Trudeau 2.0. Now, speaking of Trudeau, we're going to take a look at the fat pig with rabies. I didn't know how to segue it, but here's what Doug Ford has to say about these tariffs from Hollywood.
It's every day something new with them. You know, we built our film industry up to about $3 billion. Our goal is $5 billion. But again, he's just going after the entire world. It's obviously backfiring. You see his polls, the worst in 80 years. He's down to 39% of approval rating. And I think he has to start moving quick before the midterms because it's not going to look good for him in the middle. It's every day.
Okay, so Doug Ford is talking smack about President Trump because Trump did put on tariffs for the movie industry. Turns out that pissed off a lot of Canadian politicians. The Ontario Premier, the BC Premier, David Eby, Communist Eby.
For our first of many steps, effective today, I have directed BC liquor sales to immediately stop buying American liquor from red states. Liquor store employees will be removing the most popular of these brands from government store shelves.
And then also at the more municipal level, you have Olivia Chow, the Toronto mayor.
Impact of U.S. tariffs on Toronto's film industry right now. Let's listen in live.
30,000 jobs with $2.6 billion economic impact. And nowhere else in the world are there places that have this kind of diverse talents that we have right here in the city of Toronto. So it's going to devastate the American film industry. Hollywood need to rebuild because of the fire, but it really shouldn't come and devastate the film industry by doing the 100% tariff. Now, it's not clear when President Trump talk about foreign films. These are American films, and with a lot of production being made in Toronto.
Yeah, it is kind of unclear at this time. Foreign films, a lot of American films and American TV shows like Suits, for example, is very much filmed in Toronto. So are they going to be tariffed 100% or whatever? I don't know. Just seems like we're getting crazy with the tariffs all over again. So expect some market turbulence. But now we're going to take a look here at CBC and what they have to say about the Canada-US trade war with Trump and if Carney is even able to avoid it at all.
Let me define awkward for you. Mark Carney is right now the Prime Minister of Canada, in large part because of his take on Trump, that he is the enemy.
We are over the shock of the American betrayal. Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. Our old relationship, based on steadily increasing integration, is over.
But here's the awkward part.
It was the one that hated Trump, I think the least of that one.
That same Mark Carney will now confront the man he has been vilifying.
Today we mentioned Mark Carney leaves for Washington, that meeting tomorrow in the White House.
But this is politics, where a man can walk right into the Oval Office, having told millions of his supporters of American betrayal. He can look that other man who refuses to stop threatening Canada with annexation dead in the eye, and it all might go very, very smoothly. Or it might not. We don't know. We are very intentionally recording this before the meeting takes place, because while the meeting is expected to be substantive, like, you know, this isn't just some 20-minute handshake photo op. Both sides are bringing teams of people to talk. For the cameras, there will still be posturing and window dressing and maybe even theatrics layered on top.
Do not expect white smoke out of that meeting.
I'm not sure what he wants to see me about, but I guess he wants to make a deal.
So our goal is to detach from that and instead to give you a broad sense of what the two sides actually have to discuss.
This is going to be a make or break for Carney. I mean, if he comes in, like, I don't like the guy, right? I don't like the guy, obviously. I don't like that he won, but I do like this country and he is representing us. And so all I can hope for is the best and plan for the worst. Now, if Mark Carney does a decent job, then objectively speaking, I have to do my due diligence and I have to go on camera and say, okay, he did a decent job. But, and it's a big but, if he does anything remotely close to Justin Trudeau, it's not going to be good. And so he's trying to distance himself from Justin Trudeau, not only with branding here in this country, but also internationally. He doesn't want to be tied to Trudeau at all. And so this is, now that he's our legitimate prime minister, this is his first big test. Can he stack up against Trump? What does that look like? Can he throw Trump off guard? I mean, obviously, I'm rooting for Canada. Obviously, do I want to see Carney be humiliated? Yeah, a little bit, because I don't like the guy, but I'm still kind of rooting for Canada. Like, it is our country. My allegiance is to the country. So Let's keep looking.
Awkwardness aside.
Our focus will be on both immediate trade pressures and the broader future economic and security relationship between our two sovereign nations.
Trade pressures is a very understated way of referring to an absolutely dizzying array of tariffs Trump has, by executive order, imposed on Canadian goods entering the country. 25% on Canadian steel and aluminum. 25% on Canadian cars, 25% on anything, in fact,
That's
not
a
covered
lot.
by the existing free trade deal, plus 10% on critical minerals, energy, and potash. Then you have Canada retaliating with tariffs on $30 billion worth of American goods, plus another set of tariffs on another $30 billion worth of goods, which includes U.S. steel and aluminum, and then countervailing tariffs on certain American cars. And these don't include all the times tariffs were threatened, but then paused.
Today, we're moving forward with a 25% surcharge on electricity exports.
The U.S. Customs Agency now says parts covered by North American free trade rules will be exempted.
But here's where things get tricky if you're thinking about how precarious talks will be, because Trump's position is built on a claim he has never backed up.
We're spending hundreds of billions a year to take care of Canada. We lose in trade deficits. Why are we supporting a country $200 billion plus a year?
Nobody knows where that number comes from because it doesn't match any number anyone has on record. The actual U.S. trade deficit with Canada, nowhere near the $200 billion figure cited so often by Trump. It was just over $63 billion U.S. last year. Now, it's widely believed Trump's $200 billion figure is more notional than anything else, an informal accounting of the many ways the U.S. supports Canada militarily and in matters of defense, for example. So, okay, add it to the pile of numbers Donald Trump has ever offered without any evidentiary backing.
Since I came in, gasoline is down, groceries are down, egg prices are down, many things are down, just about everything. Eggs are down 87%. Cambodia, oh, look at Cambodia, 97%. We're subsidizing Canada to the tune of over $100 billion a year. And $200 billion a year, going up to 400%.
But if you're Mark Carney and you're trying to settle what is essentially a giant math problem, except the numbers themselves are at best hazy and at worst arbitrary, that's not an easy conversation to have.
I think the
it's really
expectations
not.
of this meeting need to be, frankly, kind of low because we're not even talking about the same things. So figuring out what the box that we're going to be talking within is, I think that's job number one.
And there's an even bigger picture here. For a long time now, experts have wondered whether this trade war is a war with its own set of purposes, to raise money, to stoke domestic manufacturing, to put allies on notice, or is it creating leverage for a larger negotiation down the road?
The trade deal that is up for review is the U.S. Canada-Mexico agreement, the USMCA. If we look at trade between the three countries in the USMCA, we trade over $1 trillion. And in fact, in the United States, about 40 states trade more with Canada than with any other economy in the world, right? So this is such an important trade economy and trade agreement for the United States as well.
Trump's first administration negotiated the free trade deal Canadians know as CUSMA and that Americans know as the USMCA. But Trump believes Canada has not lived up to its terms. And by law, there has to be a new deal renegotiated in 2026. So between now and then, plenty of time for things to become far more complicated. The reason we know the subject of this White House meeting cannot possibly be strictly limited to trade is because Trump believes many issues are interconnected, even issues that have no apparent connection at all.
Much has been said over the last 3 months about Mexico and Canada, but we have very large deficits with both of them. But even more importantly, they've allowed fentanyl to come into our country at levels never seen before.
We learned 3 important things from
I don't know if Carney is going to be prepared. There's no amount of preparation that Carney could do to deal with Trump. Like, of course, I'm on Team Canada. I'm not on the Liberal side, but I want Canada to prosper. I want Canada to get a good deal, the best deal that we possibly can, right? Because it affects me, affects my family, affects my kids, my wife, and future generations. But man, Trudeau tried. Liberals keep trying. I just don't see how this is going to be positive for Carney. Every time somebody goes in there, and I would have the same concerns if it was Pierre Poilievre. Every single time somebody goes into these negotiations with Trump, they think, all right, I've thought it through. I'm not just one step ahead. Maybe I'm 2 or 3 steps ahead. Just isn't the case. And Trump just has a way, the art of the deal, the 5D chess, whatever you want to call it, to always be more prepared than who's coming to see him.
The opening days of Trump's presidency, when he threatened tariffs on Canadian goods, angry about Canadian fentanyl apparently flooding it. 1, that Trump is capable of justifying tariffs even with reasons that have nothing to do with trade. 2, that these provided reasons don't even need to be all that grounded. Because regarding fentanyl, what Trump has repeatedly ignored is the fact that last year, U.S. agents only seized about 50 pounds of fentanyl at its northern border with Canada. Compare that to the more than 20,000 pounds, almost 10,000 kilos of fentanyl seized at the southern border with Mexico.
Canada is responsible for less than 1% of the illegal fentanyl that is going into the United States.
And even reducing the amount of Canadian fentanyl caught crossing into the U.S. border to less than half a pound for all of March this year across the entire border, part of a $1.3 billion effort to address Trump's demand, even that could not move Trump off his position, that entire swaths of Canada's economy needed to be tariffed.
The fentanyl tariffs, well, were not merited to begin with, but are even less merited given all the steps that the government of Canada has taken and the progress that's been made.
But here's the third thing we learned from that whole episode, that so much of what Trump demands of foreign countries, he justifies as a national security issue, or even a national emergency. It was true of fentanyl, it was true for steel and aluminum, it was true of cars. It's even true for his latest tariffs against foreign films, a 100% tariff on any and all movies coming into our country that are produced in foreign lands. The justification? An unsubstantiated claim that there is a concerted effort to destroy Hollywood, and that this constitutes, you guessed it, a national security threat.
The main reason he's calling these out as security issues is by doing so, it gives him the power to control the tariffs that he's using to try to fight this trade war.
President Trump doesn't want to go through the traditional processes. He doesn't want to follow basic norms. He doesn't want to go through Congress, which actually has the authority to regulate trade with foreign countries. And so what we're seeing is a very ad hoc approach.
So Mark Carney may walk into this meeting with Donald Trump expecting to stay focused on 2 big issues.
Our focus will be on both immediate trade pressures and the broader future economic and security relationship between our 2 sovereign nations.
But these 2 issues cover everything. All that we've mentioned, plus everything we haven't. Canada's military defense spending, certainly, and how this country has consistently failed to meet its 2% NATO target. But also the Americans' increasingly choked supply of critical raw materials, the rare earths that make electric engines run and jets fly, and Canada's got them. What about water? The U.S. and Canada are locked right now in a water-sharing dispute involving the sprawling Columbia River, one of the largest watersheds on the entire continent. And then consider things from Mark Carney's point of view as it relates to Canadian security.
Do you plan to talk to him about making Canada a 51st state?
He wants to come and see me. He's going to come this week or next week.
So will you talk to him about making Canada a 51st state, annexing Canada?
I'll always talk about that. You know why? We subsidize Canada to the tune of $200 billion a year.
If he can push back on the notion of the 51st state without letting the conversation get too bogged down in it and by it and revert it back to the issues of trade that are the reasons he's here to talk about, then I think that's going to come out as a win for Carney. If he gets bogged down in fighting with him about, whether it's an insult or why it's an insult and why it matters to Canadians, then that's how you can see those meetings turn into a sort of shouting match, and he doesn't want that.
It's going to be extremely risky for the Prime Minister in this encounter. Extremely risky. If it goes off the rails, it could be very, very bad.
I've heard experts refer to step one of any relationship between Carney and Trump as a level setting, establishing a baseline. Are we working from the same set of facts? What do you even want?
Figuring out what we're talking about, simple as that might sound, is the most important thing that can be done in this meeting and that can be accomplished coming out of it. If Mark Carney can walk out of the White House saying we have agreed on the parameters of this conversation, that it's about a trade deficit and these are the numbers we're all going to use going forward, that's a net win right there.
But what happens over the course of this week will set the tone of a relationship that could last years. And it's worth noting, for everything we could say about potential policy areas of conflict and cooperation, this is also a president who values personal chemistry more than most others. If Carney is going to avoid a trade war, that's the starting point from which all other things will flow.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, he's already kind of shot his load by going around saying that our relationship with America is over as we know it. So he's already taken the Justin Trudeau, governor of Canada approach by talking a whole lot of smack here domestically and then going in person and being a completely different person with a completely different agenda than what he shouts on, on domestic affairs, like domestic television and press conferences and things like that. So he's already really shown his cards, and Trump hasn't, if I'm being totally honest. I mean, Canada first, not the liberal version, but I'm pro Canada more than I am pro America. But I think that going into this, Trump has a massive advantage. Carney is going to America. Carney is going to say, stop doing this and stop doing that and stop this and stop that. Stop calling us 51st state. Stop with the lies about 200 billion. And Trump already knows this. His team knows this and they are prepared. And it's going to be a shit show. We could very well see the Zelensky 2.0 happening today, where Trump says, you haven't even said thank you. It's time you get out of here. I will laugh and then I will probably cry. And then I might laugh again. That's the end of the video, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in another video. Bye for now.